Welcome back friends, welcome back in another video tutorial for microbiology with Shatnik. So in that video tutorial we are going to discuss about paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography together. So chromatographic technique, as we have discussed in our detailed lectures video regarding chromatography, where we have discussed that chromatography is nothing but a interaction between stationary phase and mobile phase. So here two phase is very important, stationary and mobile. So remember that in case of paper chromatography and all type of chromatography that are in use are all based on that principle, that is the interaction between stationary phase and mobile phase. Now the question is, what is stationary phase and what is mobile phase? So stationary phase is a phase which is in general made up of porous solid or made up of paper in that case, or any kind of thin layer absorbent that will help you to separate and subsequently analyze your sample that is in your mobile phase. Okay, so what is mobile phase? Mobile phase is a solution that contains your sample. Okay, and the mobile phase will be passed through the stationary phase, and depending on the type of molecules you are wanting to separate, you will construct your stationary phase, okay, in such a way that it will separate your desired mixture or separate the entire mixture on the basis of what you want. Okay, so separation is with the help of chromatography is nothing but in the mobile phase your solution will be there in the mobile phase, and the mobile phase will be passed through the stationary phase. So here the mobile phase is this one and this one, and the stationary phase is this one. So in the stationary phase they will be separated, right? So that is the idea of basic chromatography, the interaction between stationary phase and the mobile phase, and our sample is present in every chromatographic technique in mobile phase, that you need to remember. Okay, so now let's move on the basic chromatographic technique that is you need to know at the foundation level. So first one is paper chromatography. So in paper chromatography, first of all, in every chromatography technique you need to follow a pattern. That the pattern should be what is the stationary phase, what is the mobile phase, and how the separation is going on in a brief manner. Okay, and what is its advantage and disadvantage. So we are going to follow this pattern here too. So here the stationary phase is a chromatographic paper, okay, and mobile phase will be this small dot. This small dot is nothing but our sample dissolved in a solution. Okay, that means it is a mixture of solution and our sample, and we will put that dot of the sample with the help of capillary tubes. Okay, so this is a picture of capillary tube with the help of which we will put a small dot of mixture of sample along with the solution. Okay, now this chromatographic paper will be placed in a jar containing shallow layer of solvent. As you can see, this is the shallow layer of solvent. Okay, so what will happen? So then the jar will be sealed. So what will happen? So as we have discussed this earlier in our blotting techniques, that is a capillary action will occur, but in that time it will be not as faster as we have discussed in our southern blotting or northern blotting technique. It will be quite slower. Okay, so the separation will take time, there is no doubt about this. So the capillary action, because of that capillary action, our shallow layer of solvent will start rising through the paper, and during their rise there will be a time when they will meet with our sample solution. Okay, and as like in case of southern blot and northern blot, the capillary action help us to transfer the DNA. Here in paper chromatography, the capillary action will help us to transfer the sample solution mixture. Okay, so with the help of those rising solvent, our solution will also start rising up the paper and it will start moving. Okay, and depending on their size and shape, they will be separated, because remember it is a paper, and in the paper there will be fiber like appearance that will help us to separate molecules. Okay, so after that, after some time, they will be separated, and this separation will be detected with the help of colorizing agent that will impart a color on those solute. Okay, as you can see here. So this is how the separation is going on in case of paper chromatographic technique. Again I am repeating. So here the stationary phase is a paper, that is chromatographic paper, not a normal paper. It is quite different. And here the mixture of sample and solution, that is our mobile phase, is a small dot, and with the help of capillary tube we are providing this small dot on the paper. Then we will place the paper in a jar that contains a shallow layer. Okay, so this shallow layer will help the solution to rise up the paper. Okay, and during this travel they will also help our sample to start moving upwards. Okay, and during that time the fiber like appearance that is present throughout the paper will be helping us to separate the mixture on the basis of their size and weight, just like electrophoresis, right? So that is how separation is going on. Then after separation, the visualizing agent will help us to visualize our separated mixtures. That is how easy the process is. So what are the advantage of paper chromatography? So paper chromatography, first thing is it is cheaper and easier, no doubt about this. Okay, second thing is you need a very small amount of sample for performing the separation, right? Just a small dot, right? And it will help you to determine or to identify the unknown inorganic and organic compound with the help of a system called retardation factor, or RF. So what is the retardation factor? Let's see. So this retardation factor is nothing but it is a ratio, that is distance traveled by the molecule and distance traveled by the solvent. So what is solvent? So here solvent is this one, right? And distance traveled by the solute will be this one. Solute is this one, right? So that ratio will help you to determine which kind of molecule it is. Suppose a organic molecules, suppose a mixture of protein, you don't make out that whether it is a protein or not. So with the help of chromatographic technique you can find out whether it is your desired protein sample or not, if you know what is the RF value of your desired product. Then just by performing the separation, you can easily calculate the RF value, right? So here the RF value will be 0.8 by 1. Why? Because the distance traveled by the solvent will be our this one, because the red color one is also our substance. That is why 0.8 will be the highest distance that is traveled by the molecule, and in the denominator it will be 1. Okay, and in case of the blue one, the RF value will be 0.4, as you can see, right? In that way, in the mixture of the sample, what kind of compound is in that mixture of the sample, you can easily determine with the help of RF value. So how useful RF value is. So that is also an advantage of paper chromatography, but it has some disadvantages too. You cannot use paper chromatography for quantitative analysis, okay, because large number of sample cannot be applied here. You can only apply a small dot for perfect separation, right? And another important disadvantage is complex mixture cannot be separated with the help of paper chromatography, because here the path length or plate length, not path length, plate length is limited, right? So your separation will only be up to certain extent, so it may be not enough for some type of compounds. That is why complex mixture separation cannot be done with the help of paper chromatography. Okay, so and it is obviously less accurate than other modern type chromatography. Okay, so now let's move to the next chromatographic technique that we are going to revise, that is thin layer chromatography. So thin layer chromatography is quite modification of the paper chromatography. Remember this, that will solve the major problem of paper chromatography. So remember, the major problem of paper chromatography that we have discussed, that it takes too much time for separation. Okay, so here we are using thin layer absorbent like silica, cellulose, alumina for separation. So what will be the utility of using silica, cellulose or alumina instead of paper? So remember that they are adsorbent. Okay, so they will promote the sample to elute out faster, and they will also allow a better separation. That is why we are using thin layer chromatography, and it is mostly used in most of the laboratory, although the principle is exactly the same. Okay, so you can use thin layer chromatography for amino acid separation. Okay, and this is how it looks like, not that one. Okay, it can be helpful to you. So this was the line where we have import our sample and they migrate in such a way. So this migration, as you can see, this compound is migrated a longer distance than the remaining ones. That is how the separation is done in a thin layer chromatography. And here the stationary phase, this one is silica. Okay, thin layer absorbent layer silica. So and then after the separation performed, we will use colorizing agent to visualize the solute. As you can see that the solutes here are clearly visible. And here remember one important thing, that the liquid that we are using is a ratio of acetic acid, glycerol, H2O. That is very important. Sorry, not glycerol, acetic acid, butanol and H2O. So acetic acid will be used along with butanol and H2O in a ratio of 8:2:1. Okay, remember that part, that here we are using acetic acid, butanol, H2O in 8:2:1 ratio as the solvent. Okay, so now let's touch the advantage part. So here the additional advantage is faster separation, obviously. Okay, and we can use for quantitative analysis thin layer chromatography. Okay, and another important thing is we can change the solvent, either acetic acid, butanol, H2O. We can also use another combination as a solvent, that is the freedom. Okay, and we can also change the solid fate also. Instead of silica we can use cellulose or alumina. That is also a important advantage. Okay, but it has some disadvantage too. That is, large complex mixture separation still cannot be done with the help of that method. Okay, because plate length here also is limited, and separation is here taking place in an open system. Okay, so that is a problem. So that is the main concept behind paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography. And if you are coming to the difference between paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography, so main difference is in stationary phase. Okay, as you can see, in paper chromatography we are using chromatographic paper, and in thin layer chromatography we are using thin layer absorbent like silica, cellulose, alumina. Okay, and paper chromatography will provide you the opportunity to perform your process in a less calm amount, or in calm in less amount, or in less budget. But in case of thin layer chromatography, you have to keep in your mind that the thin layer absorbent that we are using are costly. Okay, so here cost is a factor. So cost and stationary phase, that is the difference. And paper chromatography will allow a slower separation will take time, but thin layer chromatography will not take too much time. Okay, and paper chromatography cannot give you a much better separation, but thin layer chromatography can provide. Okay, so that is for today's lecture. So today we have discussed about paper chromatography and thin layer chromatography. We'll again come back with another chromatographic video lecture where we are going to show the difference between size exclusion chromatography and our column chromatography. Okay, because they are related. So till then, bye bye.